What struck me and what struck me with working with a lot of juniors is that they're very rigid in following stuff, and they're very sometimes lack the self-confidence to go beyond that. So I thought it was a good talk in the sense that it was saying we need to break this. Belfast Design community. This look isn't fully intentional. This isn't how I meant to be. I was like trying to find out what people thought of it, you know, and I wanted this talk to also be very interactive. So, you know, what do you think I look like? Do I look like Mario's father, or like an RUC officer from the 80s or 90s for the local people here? Anything else? No. So the point of this talk is, yeah, it's not about me. It's about us. It's about our community. It's about supporting each other. So what are your expectations from when someone says user research to you? What do you think, or what are you hoping to hear from me tonight? Come on ahead. Come on, let's get the conversation going. What were you hoping to hear? Anybody?
Design requirements.
Design requirements, gathering design requirements, right? Okay, yeah, cool. Anything else?
Talking to real people.
Talking to real people, yeah, okay. Anything else? Identify needs, yeah. Anything else, people? Come on.
Ways to get insight into things that you haven't experienced as a designer.
Right, that's good, yeah. Anyone else? When you were thinking user research, and who's done user research here? Cool. Who'd like to do more user research? Good, good, great. Well, for me, I think the foundation of UX is rooted in user research. If you're not understanding the problem, if you're not understanding your users and the stakeholders too, and in preparation to do this, I'd already written out what I intended to talk about, and Dami has got me on to AI, and coming here has got me on to using more AI, and I used AI. I said, right, to do this presentation with my words, but before I did that, I put together like a list of things you could talk about. And I was worried that I was just going to be covering the same old stuff that everyone talks about when they talk about user research, but I was glad to see that what I intended to highlight tonight wasn't included. So I think that's good. I do want to thank the venue here, MCS and Dami, and to the community for having me. And yeah, thanks for sharing those expectations. Unfortunately, I won't cover any of those things. No, I'm going to cover all those things. Hopefully you'll find some insights in those areas. So, again, a bit of interaction here. There was the WhatsApp group has been very useful, so I recommend everyone to join it. But there was a conversation went on there this week around don't trust the process. Who saw that? Who saw that conversation on WhatsApp? Who's on the WhatsApp group? Some of you, did you see that? Have you heard that talk? Don't trust the process. That was the big conversation going on now, and I was kind of surprised. I watched the video because it was sort of lined up with what I was planning to talk about, and what struck me and what struck me with working with a lot of juniors is that they're very rigid in following stuff, and they're very sometimes lack the self-confidence to go beyond that. So I thought it was a good talk in the sense that it was saying we need to break this. However, I would. I'll go into it in a second about how we need to use. I think we still need to have a process, but it should be your process. So, what processes are people familiar with here when it comes to user research? Anyone want to shout out? See if I've got them down.
What I do is I try to do the user research, then I get the research, and then I kind of ignore it, and it's going to do what it's going to do anyway.
Right, okay. and sometimes even when you do the research, the company ignores it as well, so you have to be careful. So anyway, there's these ones here, so I'll crack on, so I'm UXQB, I did that qualification. There's not a lot of qualifications and certifications out there in user research, but people are sometimes familiar with Google's design sprint, the 1 week session. Anyone seen that? So anyway, I just listed ones here. There are lots of processes out there. And this was the point of her talk was you've got to, she says, don't follow the process. But actually, I feel like what you need to do is be familiar with all these processes and apply them to the environment that you're working in, to the the timeline that you've got, to the resources you're going to have, to the access you're going to have to different people. So, by the way, what I also realized when I was preparing for this was that 20 minutes isn't enough time to talk about user research practically. And so we're going to run a free workshop in early April. And if people want to get into more depth and, into a specific sort of step-by-step approach, I'm not going to do a step-by-step approach here today. That would be potentially teaching people who do their own version of that. So I'm going to talk more about sort of what I think is important, which is know the processes, but create your own, because if every environment's going to be different, and therefore you want to make sure that you're not just sticking rigidly to a set of process that doesn't actually get you the results that you want. The other thing I would say is about a lot of these, and where the lady who was talking about don't trust the process was maybe focused too much on, a lot of these are for discovery, right? But a lot of them don't then translate into business as usual. So if you're going to do, research should be constant. It shouldn't just be about discovery. It should be an ongoing business as usual process. So the other thing that I tend to do whenever I'm preparing a research plan is to not just consider which process I'm going to use, but simultaneously look at things beyond what we're told just the user, right? So has anyone ever thought about this, to where else you might find information other than talking to the user in an organization? Do you want to shout out where you might look? Which stakeholders, yeah, exactly. Because if you're not satisfying the stakeholders' needs as well, so research doesn't have to be all formal and written down and recorded and all that. Sometimes you've just got to go around, speak to people, particularly the senior stakeholders, have a conversation with them, ask them what they think. You're not duty bound to follow exactly what they want, but at least you're getting an appreciation of what's going to satisfy them. And largely what I've found doing research in various companies is that if you don't get the support of the senior stakeholders, you're not going to get to continue doing the research beyond that. So it's key to sort of understand what are the quick wins, short-term wins that were going to be effective for them. So these are some of the places that I look when I'm going there. And also,